Welcome, everybody, to the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode number 290, and I'm your host, Towmaster99. It is May 14th, 2023, and yes, it is Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Hope you had a good day. And with me tonight is one Mr. Game Logic. Game, how's it going tonight?
Hi, man. I'm good. Got some technical, not challenges tonight, but some interesting nits as we try and shift to StreamYard, to try and do the podcast. Since Discord has been so horrible as of late.
Yes.
So our apologies for the technical issues last week, but hopefully we'll see how this runs. Things will be a little better. Haven't figured out how to do intro and outro music yet, but hopefully you guys will be able to catch the dialogue, and that'll be enough for 1 week until we get the rest of it back together.
Nice. Always good to have some new tech going. All right, we're going to jump into our main GX stories tonight. And it's very baseball centric as I'm looking at the rundown here. Game Logic, looks like you are still going through MLB The Show 23 on the PS5. How's that been going for you?
It's been going really good. Sorry, I had new gymnastics, so I'd forgotten to start the live recording or the local recording. I talked to you guys. Tears of the Kingdom is out this week, which I don't think any of us are playing yet. Maybe DBQ is playing. I'm not sure, but it's all the rage. Everybody's kind of jumped on board. I have stayed out of the pool, and one of the things I've been kind of vacillating about is, was that the right thing to do? Like, do I need to get in on it? And I've never felt any obligation to, play whatever the latest zeitgeist is, immediately as it drops. I play games whenever I get around to them. It's one of the reasons why I was kind of a naysayer about all the people who poo-pooed on the Nintendo Switch and said, well, nobody wants to play those games on the Nintendo Switch. They've already played them. And I'm like, no. People don't, people have backlogs. They get around to stuff years later. And so, I was kind of rehashing my whole, playlist, algorithm or whatever you want to call it. And thinking about how much I wanted to not just double down on kind of like some of my core genres, but have some type of means where it was molded around like tracking or at least better understanding what my revisit time was on certain things. Because on certain genres, like I get antsy for not playing them for a while. And then even though I might be in the middle of something, I might go like, oh, I haven't played a racing game, for a while. Forget this, I'm going to go do that. Or I haven't played a shooter for a long time. Forget this, I'm going to go do that. So I want to smooth out some of those wrinkles and kind of be a little more deliberate about certain things. So, MLB The Show was kind of one of those things. Just, it was on my list of new releases for this year that were kind of in my wheelhouse type of genres. I mentioned to you guys that, one of the things I want to do is I want to play more sports games this year. And so, I won't, don't have access to Madden 23 anymore because I was accessing that via EA Play, via Game Pass. But I do own a physical, I bought a physical copy of MLB The Show 23. So, kind of went there with that title, rather than going after Tears of the Kingdom. And it's been good. One of the things, is it on your, I can't remember, it's not on your playlist tonight. One of the things you mentioned a few weeks ago was that you weren't doing particularly well in particular on the Nintendo Switch. And have you played it on your Xbox Series X?
Yeah, I've tried. I tried on the Xbox also, and I'm just as terrible for some reason this year. Yeah.
So what settings are you playing at in terms of graphics and performance on the Xbox Series X?
I'm trying to think because on my Series X, I think I'm just playing through the cloud, so I don't think I messed with the graphics settings at all yet. So I know this last year I had downloaded it, but this year I haven't. Not on the Series X. On my Xbox One X, I believe I did download it, and I didn't change anything on there. If there's much to change on the One X.
So allow me to segue because I had a few threads that I wanted to pull tonight. So I have not had a chance since this kind of season started this year, which runs on the calendar year, from the first release until, we do our gaming superlatives at the end of the year. And maybe you've talked about it with DBQ. I don't think you've talked about it with me. I was off the show for a few weeks. The cloud thing I understand, because we've all, like, at certain chunks right along the timeline, like, said, okay, I'm going to experiment with playing in the cloud and be able to talk about that in comparison to playing on metal and see if it's for me and see, what type of consumers it's for and that kind of thing. So that I get. The Xbox Series One thing, are you trying to, like, wring your last bit of ROI out of that, or, like, what is behind you playing on that versus your Series X?
So I have my Series X hooked up to my here on this setup that I have down on my my desk and everything, where I have the nice 1440p monitor, and then the One X I have on my main TV that I have in my living room, because I was like, I still have it. I didn't trade it in because I wouldn't have got, like, too much on it. So I just figured, I'll just leave it upstairs. So I've actually been contemplating, though, of moving my Series X up there. The only problem is I was thinking, like, well, I have the One X is obviously a lot larger, and I guess you can stand it up vertically too, I think, now that I think about it. But it just takes up more room if it's setting down horizontally. And then I was thinking, I was like, well, I don't really need it because I got the PC now. It's like I can play most, if not all, the games on through Game Pass, since I obviously have Ultimate Game Pass on there. So I'm still contemplating that. I do still have my Series X down here, but Series X here on my my PC setup, and then the One X is up on the main TV in our living room.
Okay, so it's a thing of you play a good chunk of your time upstairs on the main TV in your living room, and then that drives you to do the One X, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say. Yeah, I'd probably say like 50-50 as far as, like, game age time.
Okay, so I don't know what drives the paradigm of, like, which one you play in and stuff, but what I would suggest is, so last week I talked about, or 2 weeks ago I talked about, I can't remember or changing the dynamic skill thing. One of the other things that I realized this week playing on the new FV43U monitor that I have from Aorus, which has HDMI 2.1 port, so now my now the PlayStation 5 goes into that. One of the things I definitely realized is I've played on that at 4K 120, and I've also played on that at 1440p 120, and much the same as, I talk about how, shooters, like, the image looks sharper, and I feel like I can play better on shooters with higher frame rates. And with racing games in particular, which I think is the thing that I feel like the feeling I had when I was playing baseball, right at the higher res and the higher frame rates, is most akin, right, to, when I've played racing games at higher frame rates and stuff, how, maneuvering the car through a corner feels a lot smoother, and I feel like I am reacting to changes along the racing line of the car, closer to real time than there is that lag of, when you're skipping frames and not seeing the car's movement smoothed out. I would suggest, playing it on, downloading it, playing it on your Series X, and playing it, putting it in performance mode, and either playing it at 1440p or 4K 120. On the PlayStation 5 does both. And I'm not even really sure, quite honestly, with all these weird paradigms of, like, different settings and stuff. Like, I'm not sure what they call 4K 120. I don't know if that's not. I mean, it's got the speed of performance, but the res of quality. So I've always been used to that split being, either 1080p or sometimes 1440p at 120 for performance versus 4K at 60 for quality. So whichever it is, it runs, at either of those speeds. So I would definitely. I mean, I feel like my batting timing has definitely improved since I moved to the monitor. Because, of course, on the old TV where I was playing it, that had a max refresh rate of 60 hertz. So theoretically, I was maxing out at 60 frames per second. But with the new monitor, it does 4K. It has HDMI 2.1. It does 4K 120. It also has VRR and ALLM. So that might improve your experience and help your betting game. But I've been having plenty of fun with it. I continue to play. I'm playing the Washington Capitals in my franchise season. I will probably, my goal is to stick with that a lot more this season, and actually play a chunk of a season whereas I feel like I buy MLB The Show every year, but don't stick with it long enough to really get a reasonable amount of return on investment out of it and get far enough into a season. But planning on doing that this season, having tons of fun since I've tweaked some of the controls and the difficulty to where I feel like it's settled out into a good game of baseball. So I'm settled out enough now on the mechanics that the next thing I'm going to do is probably start looking at, because I just have the computer managing my free agency now, because I'm not a huge baseball fan. I've never have been, so I don't understand all the ins and outs of that. Unlike, at a point in my life, I was a huge football fan, so I understand drafting and have my, digital coaching philosophies and things like that. But I'm probably at about that point where I'm about to slide into that for MLB The Show as well. But it's a great game, beautiful game, plays great on PlayStation 5, looks great on the new monitor. So having a ton of fun with it.
Yeah, and you play like full games, right? You do the full game.
I do. Yep, that is part of my pain.
I mean, I used to do that like back in the day, but now it's like I don't have time for that. That's why I do like the road to the show, because you only go up to when you're up to bat, and a couple times here and there they'll throw you into the field if that's what you're doing. So it's a little bit better, at least for me.
Yep, completely get it.
So that's good. I guess one of the reasons I'm not playing MLB The Show is that I'm still playing Baseball 9 on my Android phone, on my Google Pixel, and I'm just having a lot of fun with it. I actually got through the first, so it's like different cups. I think I mentioned this last week. You start with bronze, or you start with rookie, and then I think it just goes into like bronze, silver, and gold, and I think platinum maybe goes to diamond. I can't remember. I know I saw platinum on there. I finished the rookie season. Well, I thought I finished the whole rookie season, or rookie league, I should say. But now I'm on rookie league 2. So it's like, oh, okay, I guess they're just trying to keep me in the game, I suppose. But that's fine. So I went through the whole season. Once again, it's just kind of like Wii Sports, where you just do the batting and the pitching. You don't really do any of the outfeeding. More or less, you can kind of hit the buttons, like the buttons of the bases, and you can click on it if you want to throw it a certain base. Like there's been times where it's like I just let it go, and I was like, why did the AI do that? Like, why did I throw to that base? I shouldn't have. So you can kind of take a little bit of control, at least of where you're throwing. You can't really move the characters in the outfield or anything like that, but just going through there. I've now when I think, I don't remember if I mentioned this, but you can buy with in-game currency kind of leveled up players, or like kind of just better players basically, and those are like bronze, silver, and gold, and you can only buy the bronze level, and you just level them up as you go. I'm assuming I don't know if I could level up the default characters you start with or not. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at that, but I mean, I might as well just use the in-game currency. You acquire it pretty well. Like it's not like it's totally drawn out where I got to play like, I think I've only been playing a week, and I've already got three of the bronze level people. So but now I'm trying to level those guys up, and I have to have, not only have to have money, the in-game money, there's like these different tokens that you get. They give you different tokens for not just skill levels and like customization and stuff like that you can buy different costumes and bats and all that kind of stuff. They give you like a level up, basically, where you have to use that token along with the money to level up your guy. So yeah, I'm trying to work my way through that. That seems like it might take a little bit, because I don't see that specific token all that often. I think I only have like 2 or 3, maybe 4 right now. I think I just got another one. But and I think I need at least 10 to get out of the bronze level. So and I've been doing pretty well. I'm assuming that once I get to those higher leagues, like I'm gonna need those like higher tiered players. So I'll get that eventually. And yeah, you can pay money, not to level up your guy, but to get the money that you can level up the guy. So they kind of get you there. But I'm just having fun, playing it right now. And there's like a kind of when you go into the games, there's actually a quick result, I believe it's called, where you can just use that, and there's like now a separate currency that you acquire. Not really even currency. It's kind of like in like RPGs or kind of those more actiony games where or puzzle, even sometimes puzzle games where they give you a certain amount of times you can only like do a certain action or even kind of play the game. And now you use this to get these quick result games where you just hit the quick result game, and it kind of just plays the game for you basically. And there's kind of I guess a rating system for each player or for each team, where it kind of has like it's like a smiley face for like if you're totally your team's happy and your team's healthy, and then it kind of goes down from there. You kind of just have like a face with no expression, and then there's like a sad face, and then a totally like red face where he's like totally exhausted or angry. You can't if you put that player in, he's probably not going to do well at all. So there's kind of that aspect of it too. But on the flip side of that, you can before each game, you can go in and do like they give you recovery potions, or I forgot what they call it in the game, where you can like boost your people back up. So, and I've been getting that like pretty much after every game. You get at least one of those. So you either get like the recovery potion, or you get like a level up potion where it doesn't necessarily level up whole level, but it kind of boosts up your level of your player a little bit. So I kind of, you get one or the other, and I pretty much play every day. So I'm usually getting like a ton of those. So I just, right before a game, I just like boost everybody back up. So it's pretty good. But other than that, I'm like really enjoying it. I really like this game. Pretty, like I said, pretty simple, pretty easy, just kind of, not quick, but yeah, I can even pause the game, and you can even just like if you go totally out of a game, like in the middle of a game, if you go totally out of the app, or the game, shut it down, come back, and it just starts back up where you left off. So that's kind of nice too. So I don't have to have it sitting there running in the background. So like in the old days when you're playing like on a Nintendo or a PlayStation, where you have to leave the system running, but you don't have to do that. So that's nice. Kind of a quick resume, basically. But yeah, still playing that and enjoying it. Any comments on that one?
So is this what you're playing now instead of Marvel Snap?
Basically, yeah. I seem to be. It's almost kind of like when I'm on my console or PC now, where there's like that one game like I'm always playing, kind of like Fortnite and Rocket League. This was before it was, well, I mean, it still is Pokemon Go. I play that pretty much every day. But before I had Vampire Survivors, and then there were a couple other games I had been just kind of locked in for like a few weeks up to a couple months maybe, and I'll play that. So now it's Baseball 9. So I'm kind of taking that same mentality and going into the mobile side. Just want to have a time for a quick batting or two or pitching, whatever I happen to be doing at the time.
No, I missed part of it because I was monkeying around with the live stream. Is this mostly a coaching kind of game where you're dealing with the roster and managing the players, or is it live, full on visual, basically MLB The Show kind of replica but on mobile?
Yeah, it's I mean, obviously it's not the graphical quality as they're chibi characters, the kind of short guys. But yeah, you just play it, and like I said, it's more Wii Sports where you just do the batting and the pitching. So for the most part.
Okay. Now, have you ever played Super Mega Baseball? Any of those games? Super Mega Baseball 3
No,
from
but
EA?
yeah, I heard those are really good too. But I haven't tried those yet.
Yeah, it's similar. It's got a little slightly more kind of cartoony style, but it's as deep as any baseball game that I've played otherwise. Now, this past week, Google at Google I/O, Google presented its Pixel Fold and its Pixel Tablet. Any of those? Because are you on a 6 now or a 7?
I'm on a 6, yeah.
Okay. Are you on the 6 or the 6 Pro?
Just 6. Not the Pro.
Okay. So did either of those catch your interest, or maybe even the 7A? In terms, I can't remember how the 7A compares to how the A phone compares to the base of the preceding. If there's anything that's in the realm of where it's still a step up from the previous year, and I'm on a 6 Pro too, so I haven't made the step up to a 7. Did either of those pieces of hardware catch enough of your interest, particularly in terms of being a more interesting kind of baseball, piece of glass for baseball? And are you just playing with touchscreen controls, or I'd assume this supports controller as well?
I don't know if it supports controller. Actually, it's a good question. I haven't even thought about that. Yeah, I just doing just been doing touchscreen so far. I have to see if it works with my my little Razer uh, uh, controller that I have. Uh, but it's pretty responsive. I haven't really had any issues with it. And yeah, no, I mean, at least phone wise, I probably, yeah. I mean, I had the 3 for like the longest time, like probably like 5 years before I started having issues with it. So phone wise, no. Tablet, maybe, because I'm always kind of looking for a tablet here and there. I don't have, I haven't had a tablet for a long time. So might be something I'll look into on the tablet side.
All right, man. Very cool.
Cool. All right. And that's, I think, all we've been playing, at least new or significant. I haven't really been playing a lot, unfortunately, this past week, but I have really only one other game I'm talking about. And it's part of my staple. But first, we'll get into the news. In Game Logic, you have the first one here on Activision Blizzard, but not anything about the merger this week, at least. This is some other news that came out.
Yeah. So let's see. Trying to bring the story up now. I don't know why. Hold on. We'll figure it here in a second. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, there we go. Nice.
Yeah, so this story over on GameIndustry.biz by Brendan Sinclair. Activision Blizzard touts 2022's diversity progress. And the article reads, publisher saw modest representation improvements in 2022, but women and non-white employees also left the company at a higher rate. Activision Blizzard today released its environmental, social, and governance report detailing the company's efforts to improve representation in the company and reduced its environmental impact in 2022. Gaming is a cultural force, and for that force to reach as far as possible, we must attract and retain a highly talented and diverse workforce and build a welcoming and inclusive workplace, Activision Blizzard Chief Administration Officer Brian Blatow said in a preface of the report. Now, most of you are probably choking on the bone in your chicken soup as you're perusing and hearing this article. Obviously, the problem with this is the winner of the Wretched Scum and Villainy Award on E2KG for last year's superlatives. Just 2 years of history of just problem after problem after problem, indications of an entirely toxic workplace environment, at least maybe arguably more so on the Blizzard side even than the Activision side. J. Allen Brack obviously leaving the company due to accusations of, his involvement in things like the Cosby Room and the cover-ups of some of the HR problems there. Numerous walkouts, people petitioning for Bobby Kotick's resignation. The board, backing Kotick at every accusation, even before details of the accusations had come forward. Those board members, including Lulu Chang Messervy, who is now the chief communications officer at Activision Blizzard and is notorious for her passive-aggressive tweets regarding the merger. So, it's hilarious to me that Activision Blizzard would try and present itself as being supportive of diversity. That being said, they obviously need to clean up their act, and any effort to get there is great. But I take this report with a Jack and the Beanstalk sized spoon of salt, just as to whether or not it's believable. So, they hired its first chief officer of diversity, this year. So, things seem to have, I don't want to say that they've settled down, but at least there aren't the, employees petitioning, right, and staging walkouts and things of that nature. I don't know if that means that culture or that environment has gotten any better. But, it is what it is. Everybody's got to report something. I just don't know whether it's valid or worthwhile or not.
Yeah, I mean, I just looking through the numbers, like you see like the different percentage numbers, and it's like maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 at the most. Some of the things, hiring women and or non-binary and stuff like that. It's just like, I mean, okay, it's good, but you still only did it by a few percent. And granted, yeah, it's been like I said, like a couple of years now since this whole thing came out. And kind of crazy just because some of the stuff that came out of those reports, which I never really knew about until I was talking with a friend the other day, and he was kind of giving me the skinny on some of the stuff that happened. I was like, wow, like I didn't realize, like I never read the reports, and I just couldn't believe like some of the stuff was going on. But I mean, I guess they're trying, I guess like we could say. I mean, I guess that's good, but yeah, it's just kind of crazy how this is unfolding. But like I said, at least they're trying to do something, I suppose. But on the flip side too, you mentioned how there hasn't been any more reports of walkouts and stuff like that, but obviously they're being scrutinized right now. So of course they're going to try to be on their best behavior, I assume. So that's another part of it. Sometimes happens.
Yeah, and I think the tail of the tape here that's most significant is the churn, right? So, it reads women made up 27% of voluntary departures in 2022. So, of all the people that left the company, just short of a third of them were women. While those women account for about a quarter of their employees. So, they're bringing in or turning over or transitioning, to a more balanced workforce at a slower rate than they are losing people in those categories. And again, the statistics of race and ethnicities and all that stuff, that to me is less important in terms of the raw numbers. The raw numbers are simply indications of behavior, right, at a corporation. And so if the corporation has an environment and an atmosphere that is less welcoming to people of those categories, then that's the thread you have to pull, right, when you have an upended statistic like this, which may be indications of continuing bad behavior. All indications are that like things haven't necessarily improved. Like I haven't heard anything about employees saying, "Oh yeah, it's much better now." I just have heard less of like the walkouts and things of that nature, and a lot of that may have to do with the fact that those employees don't know whether or not they're going to be Microsoft employees, right, in a few months, or continue to be Activision Blizzard employees in a few months, and maybe a lot of them are hanging on for hopes that things will be better.
Yeah, it could also be that they're all the ones that left, or the majority of ones that left too. So you never know. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's an important thing to bring up, right? So when you talk about some of the statistics here about middle management and leadership, in the wake of J. Allen Brack leaving Blizzard, Mike Ibarra, who was a former Microsoft employee, and Jen O'Neill were promoted to be co-leads of Blizzard. Jen O'Neill left almost immediately after that promotion, when things surfaced that I think she had been offered. I think a raise that she had been offered was not like she had determined that her pay was not commensurate with like male peers, and then that I think she was offered a pay increase to take this position, and I think there was, basically a feeling that the pay was only being offered either for them to save face by putting a woman in this position, or I think because she had threatened to leave if they didn't do so. And in retrospect, she was kind of like, it shouldn't have taken me threatening to leave to get, equal pay, So, however it went down, Mike Ibarra is now the single lead of Activision Blizzard. But, like you said, right, in many cases, voices that would have lent to the volume of, whether or not things were good or bad or improving at Activision Blizzard, a lot of them have left and are no longer part of the company to be part of that voice.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes in the coming years, if that continues or not. All right, let's jump into the next two. Actually, news stories are some financials. A lot actually financial. I think we get into a lot of the kind of end of the other fiscal year for a lot of companies. I think I saw Capcom up there and Konami. Some reports how they're doing. But right now, I have not so much of how EA is doing, but some of the things that they said during their recent financial call. Excuse me. CEO Andrew Wilson was asked by one of the investors about the impact of the microeconomic uncertainty on the consumer spending, which he replied, the consumers rely more on familiar brands during such times, which puts EA in a good stead, but that this has current phase will pass and there will be opportunities to focus on new IP. He continues on. What we think that will outweigh in this move into this broader social economic ecosystem that our games as a platform, he said, according to a transcript, excuse me. What we're seeing as is the evolution of a definition of gaming. So basically, and I'll kind of jump around this article too a little bit. He continues, just think about building EA Sports FC for the future, The Sims, Battlefield, Apex, and Skate. Because if you don't remember, Skate will be a live service game, when a Skate 4, I think it is, or whatever they call it when it does come out, the newest one, and other properties in our portfolio. We will really think about that in the context of building games as platform or content as platform to drive these long-term business actions of our pillars of play, watch, create, and connect. So it kind of goes through a little bit more, going through, obviously that they want to do obviously more live service. No, I shouldn't say what they want to do more, but they want to focus more on live service, but they'll continue to do single player games. And you mentioned obviously recent games like Star Wars, Jedi Survivor. Sorry, I couldn't remember what the name was, and games like that. So, I mean, I think it's kind of par for the course for a lot of these companies lately that they're trying to focus more on the live service games. But as we've seen, and maybe not so much the bigger companies, we see a lot of these live service games have kind of gone under, and they're closing down, and things like that. So I don't know if you had a chance to read the article, or if you've seen other articles. And this one came from GameIndustry.biz.
Well, not this one specifically, but of course this week we also had the shutdown of the Sony studio, I think Deviation Games, where the former leads of Halo and Destiny 2 and things of that nature, they were putting together one of the vaunted 10 multiplayer PvP, well, theoretically PvP, but games as a service games that were being put together for the PlayStation portfolio, and now we're down to 9. So beliefs are that Sony saw a direction that they didn't particularly care for, as in terms of whether or not this game was going to fit with the breadth of things that they needed in their portfolio, that it was going to come off, whether or not it was going to come off feeling like a PlayStation game. So, they put the kibosh on it, which, Sony, again, I always draw lots of analogies between Sony and Apple. And Sony, theoretically is one of the gaming companies that does a good job of unfortunately, killing projects, and turning off the faucet, rather than just kind of letting money spill down the drain for years and years and years, developing something that's not going to be in sync. So the thing that I thought was curious to me was, I do agree that it's par for the course for EA, because it sounds just like what they said, 10 years ago, when they said, basically, we're not going to do anything but develop multiplayer games, because that's all players want. And of course, I mean, the thing with EA is, it seems like whenever they do mention something, it's always about not just chasing the current trend of where money is piling up, but saying, not only are we going to chase that trend in order to chase that dollar, but that's also all we're going to do. And I think that's what kind of flips people out, right? It's the fact that they came out and said, we're only going to do, there'd be no sense in doing any game without a multiplayer component, because all people care about is the multiplayer. So fortunately, Zampella has been able to kind of turn the tide on that and get their interest reinvigorated in the single player games. It'll be interesting to see if that spike in what people normally go after in the EA portfolio, in terms of, Jedi Fallen Order, was an anomaly, right? Based on an amplified signal, where a single player focused, narrative story driven game came out from a company that claimed it was never going to do that again. I'm just not absolutely certain that, and Jedi Survivor has a much tougher slate that it's releasing in, right? It's releasing right before Tears of the Kingdom. Then you have Final Fantasy right after that. So, I feel like for people who will be looking for that content, there's not a lot of wiggle room, in terms of, well, if I didn't make room for Jedi Survivor, I'll have time to loop back to it, right? Because if those people are in the same bucket of people who go after Tears of the Kingdom and Final Fantasy, then they're not going to have time to loop back to it, because those are two games that could easily consume, upwards of 70 hours, right, a piece theoretically, and multiple playthroughs and things of that nature. So I don't know that there's going to be room on those people's slates until the end of the summer. And by the end of the summer, I hate to claim it because I've insisted that the game's not going to stick the release date, but theoretically, then they'll have Starfield, right? If they're multi-platform gamers. So, it'll be interesting to see if Fallen Order achieves the same commercial success. I'm sorry, if Jedi Survivor achieves the same commercial success as Fallen Order, and to see what EA does, in terms of that portfolio direction of content, based on those numbers. But I felt like I was reading a headline from 10, 13 years ago when I saw this, because I was like, oh, this is just what they said when they were talking about only multiplayer.
Just a different buzzword. That's all. Well, it's interesting too when he mentions, hey, we got these single player experiences that we're doing. Obviously, you got Jedi Survivor. That's the only one they mentioned in the article. And then I'm thinking, well, what else do they really have though, as far as like single player? I mean, I guess Dead Space, because that's kind of coming back. I suppose they did the remake. They got System Shock coming up, supposedly, and is that a remake or is that like a totally different game?
I think it's totally different. I think it's System Shock 3, technically.
Okay.
I think their other big single player game is The Sims. It's kind of where they're bringing a lot of money out of, and there's and it has a following of people that gobble up every expansion pack DLC thing that drops with new Barbie costumes to put on your Sims. So I mean, it's a money churning machine, right? So even though there might be single player stuff, it'll be interesting to see. He said single player, but he didn't necessarily say single player one and done canned, linear story from A to B. That's
true. Yeah.
In terms of Respawn doing that still seems to be kind of a one-off, because, like I said, even their other single player focused experiences seem to still be, a money wheel kind of thing, which you would expect to be exactly what kind of EA goes after.
Yeah. And I guess you have Need for Speed too, I guess, technically, because that's always, or at least lately, they've tried to throw like a story around that, instead of just being cops and robbers or some singular racing thing. Then the other thing I was going to mention too, when you said that they're one of the companies, they kind of try to go with the trends or try to follow the trends. What do you think makes them? I don't want to say more successful, but they seem to be doing something a little bit better than maybe say like Ubisoft, who we've seen, kind of try to do the same thing and fail a lot. Like obviously they've had a bunch of games that they've kind of shut down and kind of just let go. What do you think do you think it's just because of the IPs they have? Like, I mean, they have obviously the sports titles; those are huge. You have the Sims, and now you have Star Wars that they've done a fairly good job at. So.
Well, Ubisoft's problem really comes down to they still, they're trying to make a go at that content that is still really single player oriented. All of those games have multiplayer and co-op like aspects to them. They're predominantly things that most people play as single player experiences, right? The Division 2 has multiplayer, but the number of people who really party up to go after the Division 2 in large numbers, I don't know is that big. It's certainly not like a Rainbow Six Siege, right, or a Call of Duty. So they're still kind of single player experiences, and the problem with Ubisoft is they just get themselves in this grindhouse of replicating and repeating a lot of that and trying to do that on an annualized basis, which we saw with rhythm games, right, drove rhythm games kind of out of the industry. So the problem is that Ubisoft keeps trying to force annualized content when they don't necessarily have the IP that lends itself as easily to that. And even if they did, they don't have the creative teams to really take it in that other direction, right? I mean, they have one of the best production pipelines, right, in terms of being able to get software out the door. They have probably the closest production pipeline to Activision's, right, to the Call of Duty teams. And actually, I think theirs was put together before that Call of Duty, like that massive, architecture got put together in terms of workflows and 9 teams working on Call of Duty. But their problem is year after year, while there might be 6, 7, 8 studios working on an Assassin's Creed game, that I think it's, I want to say it's Ubisoft Montreal that's the Assassin's Creed team. Like Ubisoft Montreal is still the lead studio, so unlike Call of Duty, they don't rotate lead studios right each year. That might be something which might lend themselves to it, but the unfortunate thing is, and I, as a history major, I would have been fine with the notion of give me an Assassin's Creed every year set in a different period of history, right, in a different geographic location. I will eat that up, right, because I love period films, right, but the market just kind of grew weary of that, and it became such a huge production spectacle that it was incredibly difficult to get that out the door, right? So smaller, tight experiences might help with that, but then you're probably not making the revenue, right, that you might make. I mean, EA's key thing is just, I mean, you said it, it's the everything we talked about it before, right? It's the sports teams, it's all the money that the whales dump into Ultimate Fantasy Team, for both FIFA and Madden. And then it's like I mentioned, things like The Sims, right? They just have these, games that, people just throw huge amounts of money at for DLC. So, I mean, EA probably doesn't have a lot to worry about, anytime soon. As much as Ubisoft. So I don't know. I don't know if Ubisoft will ever get there. They're trying to with all like this live action, live service stuff, which I'm a little dubious on. I do think like the thing that Ubisoft has done that impresses me in terms of them thinking outside of the box and pulling this together is the recognition that, hey, we have lots of people who love the Assassin's Creed IP, but they're scattered amongst multiple demographics, right? We have the people who like the Origin, Odyssey, Valhalla stuff, but we also have people who loved the smaller, tighter experiences of Assassin's Creed 1 and 2 in the Ezio stuff, and they're trying to, cater to both of those groups, as well as, people who would be interested in the live service stuff. So I do want to mention one comment. Paul's Gaming Live has joined in the live stream. Thank you so much, Paul, for coming through. Mentions, I pray Mass Effect can find its magic touch again. It could be the biggest single player they have, in my opinion. Yeah, no, that's a good point. And in all that though, we didn't mention the one really big black eye that EA has, which is BioWare, right? One of the four horsemen of the apocalypse who have lost their mojo and fallen off that horse. Being Bethesda, Blizzard, BioWare, and CD Projekt Red. There was a fifth studio that was coming out. Oh, I have to add Arcane to that now. So it'll be, I don't know, it'll be interesting. I agree, Paul. I'm still interested to see if BioWare finds its way back.
Yeah, I think they just announced too that they delayed Dragon Age again, I think, or they delayed Dragon Age. I shouldn't say again, but it's being delayed. So, not that they ever had any kind of release date, but I think people thought that it was probably going to come out this year. We'll see. See what happens. All right, let's jump into our second story that you have here for Square Enix or Enix, depending on how you want to say it. On their financial year.
Yep. So Square Enix's full year sales dip 6%. This is another story over on Game Industry. Busy week for those guys whenever earnings come out. By Jeffrey Rousseau. Square Enix released its financial report for the year ended March 31st, and the firm's revenues saw a 6% dip as it finished with about $2.5 billion in net sales. Here's what you need to know about the Final Fantasy publisher's 12-month period. Net sales were $2.54 billion, down 6% year on year. Profit was $364 million, down 3% year on year. Digital entertainment revenue $1.8 billion, down 12% year on year. So I believe that is their digital sales versus physical. So just down all around. Man, like trying to think of anything positive to say about Square Enix. The problem, I mean, the problem with these guys is, what it's always been, which is, kind of dubious projects they pick, dubious focus, selling off their Western IPs, all of the, stuff about NFTs and doubling down on that. Um, they're now they're talking about expanding, creating new studios, putting minority stakes in other companies. Um, it said the firm listed consideration of an M&A activity. I'm not clear if that's about selling themselves, or I believe that's about buying other studios, but I don't know what studios would be on the radar that would be significant enough to move the needle. Probably not anything major, so these would probably be smaller fish that like Embracer is going after. So they project revenues for the fiscal year ending next year to be up 5%. So not quite certain what's leading them to believe in greater revenue the year after, kind of recessions or recessionary impacts. The only thing I can think of is that, they think they're going to sell a crap ton of Final Fantasies copies this summer, which is probably true. Armored Core is probably going to help move that needle a little bit too. But my thing with Square Enix is always, I've never. I mean, they're another company that to me is like Bethesda, where there is this rabid fan base that I feel like gives them a pass for, every misstep. And, but what I don't know is, whether or not Square Enix is ever going to, step on their own tail feathers and pull a Fallout 76 like Bethesda did. But, when Bethesda did Fallout 76, I was kind of like, in their fan base, like cried out in pain. I was like, yeah, this is what I've been telling you guys about right for 20 years. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting. Square Enix constantly complains about, titles not moving the numbers that they want it to, but yet that ship continues to sail downstream, because anytime they do release a Final Fantasy, it basically makes enough money for the whole rest of the company to survive on, and their live action MMO continues to do well too. So I want to say I think where they always land with me is they're a company that I feel like should get their comeuppance, but they never do, and I don't know that they ever will, because Final Fantasy.
Yeah. I like how and the looking ahead section is that's the only game they have down there is Final Fantasy 16 coming out, and I mean obviously they probably have other games, but I don't know if they have anything as big as that's going to be coming out. And then the other thing is they're talking about last year's big titles were Outriders, Near Replicant, excuse me, and Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, which I believe all those developers are gone now that made those games. So, and I mean I've heard good things about Forspoken and Crisis Core, and kind of mixed things about Octopath Traveler. So I mean obviously that's probably why they've kind of had a rough last year, but we'll have to see what else they have coming up. Obviously we have we're nearing the E3-ish time of the year, so we'll start to see more things coming out for later in the year and early next year. So we'll see what they got. Hopefully, what they got coming out.
Yeah, and Paul put a correction for me. Armored Core is FromSoft. Yeah, sorry. I think what I was thinking was the FromSoft games that have been published by Bandai Namco, and got Bandai Namco and Square Enix mixed up in my head because of their sometimes similar content. But yeah, thanks a lot, Paul. Appreciate it.
Nice. All right, well, that's it for the news. Let's jump into our round robin section, and I'll go first. Like I said, I haven't really been playing much. I just have Fortnite down here, and the only reason I put it down here, obviously, I play it all the time, week to week. But there's one thing I haven't done in a long time, and I've actually been playing a lot of squads this past week, which I haven't really done that in a while, just because I always think the trios is kind of like the magic number, just having 3-on-3 and groups going against each other. But my one friend, that I've been playing with for a while now, he had a couple friends. There was one friend that we would play with, so we would do trios. But now he has got another friend that has jumped on, so we were doing squads the last few days and a couple times during the week. And we've been doing pretty good. We've just been playing zero build which I didn't realize it's been a year now since that's been out, a little bit over a year since the zero build mode came out. Where obviously, if you don't know, that's no building in that at all. And they've done actually a pretty good job lately this past year of um, putting in different items and just different things you can do in that no build mode, which you can do, and I believe in build mode. I think for the most part, uh, and a lot more traversal items too. Like they have like the swords now that you can kind of like zip around in, and obviously they've had vehicles now for a few years. But they've did. I think they're starting to figure out that hey, a lot of people like the zero build mode, and we kind of have to kind of I don't want to say shift over totally to that, but like I said, start to bring in items and do things that will, kind of build that mode up, which is kind of weird to say since obviously that was, no one ever thought they'd ever do that. But once again, like I always say, they're always trying different things and putting new stuff in there. And yeah, I miss some of the old maps and some of the old guns and some of the old vehicles and so all this other stuff. But I do really like how they change pretty much every season. There's something different. Either it's a gun or it's some kind of ability. Like they've added augments, which is basically kind of like perks that you can do in the game now that kind of unlock over the course of while you're playing. So it's I'm just still enjoying it pretty much since I've started playing again. So I'm just going to keep going on. Any comments on that, Game Logic?
Did you play the week that like the Star Wars content came out? Did you play like with any of those characters or obtain any of those characters?
Yeah, actually, that's one of the things that when they had the Marvel characters back in the day, and they actually had like their own mode where you can use like Captain America's shield and Hawkeye's, bow and arrow and Thor's hammer and all this other stuff. Iron Man's gauntlets you can fly and shoot with. I always thought like, oh, I wish they'd put that in the game. Like obviously that was taken away because, like I said, they're always taking stuff out. It might be licensing thing too. Like maybe they can't use it. They've had web shooters in there before. Now, like I said, and like you're saying, they have the Star Wars. Then you have different Star Wars NPCs around the board or around the map that you talk to. You get a lightsaber. Not only do you get lightsaber, you actually get a specific force power from that NPC. So, I always wanted to have some kind of mode where you can do those powers. And now they seem to be doing it, at least with Star Wars characters, which is actually pretty cool. And just, brings a different dynamic. You have force push and pull. You kind of have like where I think it's Darth Maul, where you kind of like lift up stones and like throw them at people. So, all these different things. And it's really fun. Actually, I really like it. I wish they would do more of those kind of things. But we'll see. All right, and you have a couple games here. Some main one here. I should say main one, but the one here that you've been playing, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2.
Yep. So I've been continuing to, I got on board finally with Season 3 Reloaded. I think when Season 3 Reloaded launched initially, I was out of town. And was shifting things around game wise, was starting to spend more time on my Steam Deck, but also, sold my my Xbox Series X at the time. But I have gotten back to it. Now that I'm not playing Halo Infinite anymore, it's kind of become my mainstay with regards to PvP. I've been playing it on both PC and my PlayStation 5. So where the PlayStation 5 is hooked up now, like I said, with the new F43VU monitor or FE43U monitor from Aorus, it sits on it sits next to the monitor is obviously the monitor for one of my main gaming PC setups, but it's an easy stretch from the PlayStation 5 over to it, so I'm able to set up keyboard and mouse and play with it there. And it now that the 1440p mode has been implemented on the PlayStation 5, I can play at 1440p or 1080p or 4K. So been having a good time doing that. I've hit the point where I'm not obsessive about so I should mention, sorry, I meant to pick up two comments from Paul's Gaming Live. Paul mentioned Square said something strange this week about funding AAA games from the revenue from the MMO games and mobile. Strange way to run a business. And then mentions on your Fortnite play Fortnite with the kid myself. Game is solid. At the moment, it's Attack on Titan, lightsabers, and force powers. Gotcha. Yeah, I'm at the point now where, I played hard for season 2 Didn't get as much time in on season 1. I put in a fair amount of time on season 3, but I'm hitting that point where in Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, I generally couldn't be bothered with leveling a lot of the weapons kind of outside my core. So I leveled assault rifles, SMGs, and either the battle rifle or marksman rifles. I forget what they were. They were one weapons category in Black Ops Cold War, and now they've decomposed that into 2 because now Modern Warfare 2 has both the battle rifles and the marksman rifles. And all that stuff used to be like one category. But that's pretty much all I leveled. And I didn't bother with pistols and melee and rocket launchers and the riot shield and all that kind of stuff. I'm about hitting that point, and I hit that point fairly early with with Black Ops Cold War. Just wasn't necessarily interested in doing the pain of leveling like all the shotguns and stuff. I've spent way more time with that content in Modern Warfare 2. I have leveled, most of the shotguns, leveled a fair number of the pistols. I have one that, I finally leveled them up enough that I can, wield dual pistols. I've almost leveled the riot shield up to its max level. It has a max level of 15, and I'm like 12 or 13. So I spent a lot more time. But the problem is that almost all of that, like half of that time spent has been pain. You're working shotguns on a map that's really not made for shotguns, right? You're working the riot shield in lots of modes and constantly getting semtexed and killed. But you put in the time to do it because you got to level the riot shield, right? But I'm hitting the point now where I'm like, I think I'm about done. Like they popped a new sniper rifle this season. I think it's the JFX Imperium or JVX Imperium, and I started trying to use that, and I was like, I don't know that I'm interested in like you do the pain of leveling the sniper rifles, and then when you think you're done, they inject a new sniper rifle, and I'm like, I don't know that I feel obligated to do this. So I'm rearranging all my loadouts with like really my favorite weapons. I'm hitting the point where, and again, this is with Black Ops Cold War. I hit this point maybe the end of season 1 where I started like hitting all the things. Okay, now I've unlocked this weapon. Let's find out what the best build for this weapon is. Let's find out what the best attachments are. I'm hitting that point in season 3 where I'm like going back through and doing like dual assault rifle builds with overkill, and going and hitting Charlie Intel and pulling up all the reports on, okay, what is the best build for this weapon? Because I'm not interested in playing anything less than the best build because I'm done unlocking weapons. I think I'm now just focusing on prestige and battle tokens. So I may be hitting that point now. Not to say, I've leveled a number of the sniper rifles, so I may go back and still mix in a sniper rifle in my given loadouts. But I think I might be done chasing the whole weapons branch and weapons tree because it's super complex in Modern Warfare 2. The other game that I've been playing in the last game for tonight to talk about is I have been playing Horizon Zero Dawn on PC. So again, going back to that conversation in the opening of the show where I've kind of been revisiting my whole, playlist paradigm and, how I want to approach gaming and content and go after what games. And, Tears of the Kingdom is on my list, but it's not necessarily a priority. But, but a game that I do feel more comfortable with in terms of the, Western vector of its design is Horizon Zero Dawn. I want to get to the DLC that came out this year, but I felt before I did that, I needed to go back and do a full run through of Zero Dawn, and then, do a full run through of Forbidden West. I have Zero Dawn on PlayStation, but, every PlayStation game that has been ported to PC has just been brilliant with the exception of, Tlu. But, I'm playing this game on a PC with an AMD Ryzen 5 5600X and an MSI GeForce RTX 3070 Ti, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and on a 144 hertz monitor, on ultimate settings, and I'm pumping out 144 frames per second, consistently. Actually, the GPU is putting out slightly more than 144 frames per second. The benchmark has a GPU output of 150, but obviously on a 144 hertz screen, it can only, render 144. So it's just, PC games are going through this weird thing where they're hitting bottlenecks, from devs who have, you know, there's more buffers now all over the place, right? And there's more, textures that need to be loaded all over the place, and a lot of times those textures have to be mirrored, so they have to be loaded in both VRAM and system RAM, and so we're hitting all types of bottlenecks, but but by the same token, in many scenarios, probably most scenarios, the PC, a good gaming PC still provides an incredible amount of compute and render power, in a box. So, to consider, Horizon Zero Dawn, which is a game that just came out last year, although it's a port of an older game, but still, to be, I mean, that's nowhere near my most powerful box in the studio. And for it to basically be able to, break the benchmark, in and exceed like the max, right, the max theoretical scores, that's still pretty awesome. And the Decima engine is incredible. I mentioned Death Stranding. Death Stranding on PC is, particularly the director's cut, is literally, to me, the best video game graphically that I've seen in the last 5 years or so. And Miles Morales and the Spider-Man remake, while just like a skosh of a level below that, are still like games that have the best animation and best traversal, in conjunction with great visuals, that I've seen in years. So, and God of War on PC looks great. So all of those PlayStation Studios being, games that have been brought over are pretty amazing. And Horizon Zero Dawn is no slouch itself. I had a good time playing it. Paying a little more attention, now that I'm not live, at least the beginning of the game, I wasn't live streaming. I do plan on maybe live streaming it some, next weekend. But great combat, great, has that Far Cry 5 effect that I talk about, where, you're able to kind of crouch and plan your whole kind of attack sequence out, and then execute on that, and then adjust when things go wrong. I love the crafting on the fly aspect of this game, which I want to say I've come across one other game that does that maybe released this year. But that's one of the things that always attracted me. That it's another reason why I'm not jumping feet first into Tears of the Kingdom, because it seems fairly craft heavy, and I'm like, I don't want to be bothered with that. But the ability to just kind of craft things on the fly, was huge. When I saw that in 2017 or whenever, 2017, when that game came out. So yeah, I'm having a great time going back to it.
Nice. Yeah, I gotta get back to Horizon Zero Dawn, because I bought it on PC also a while ago. And yeah, it's very pretty game. And I just like the story too. I always like the not apocalypse. This is like after an apocalypse happened, so this obviously something happened to the Earth. I'm assuming this is regular Earth. Just the story itself was pretty good. So gameplay was great. And I'm assuming you're playing keyboard and mouse.
I'm not. I'm actually playing with a controller.
Nice.
One of the gate sacrileges that I love, walking across hallowed ground with is playing a PlayStation game on PC using an Xbox controller.
That's good.
I can think of a few other ways to stick it to a rabidly loyal fan base for the people who that would bother. But yeah, I'm using for this initial part of the run through, I am using a Design Labs Xbox controller, because I got rid of my Xbox, but I kept all of my controllers. I'm probably more nostalgic about, because some of those controllers I've had since since 2014, and they all work with PC, and I still prefer them obviously over the PlayStation controller. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's third-person action game, so I've mentioned it many times. I got to use a controller just because I always feel like I'm going to break my keyboard or mouse if I'm, banging around on, doing a different move, especially if it's like a melee type of combat, which this has both. So,
yeah, I figure I'll eventually, as I chunk up my gameplay, I'll eventually, play a few days with keyboard or mouse, because this is a game where like hyper precision, benefits you. I talked about in God of War Ragnarok how things that were, like hitting those goofy runes, especially when you have to you have to throw the axe at one, run while the axe is in flight to position yourself somewhere else, so that by the time the axe comes back, you can hit another rune. Like all those puzzles and stuff like that, were very difficult for me to do. on PlayStation, with a controller, but were remarkably easy on keyboard and mouse. And so this is a game that asks of you a lot of precision with projectiles and things, just taking down the machines. So it's been fine so far, but I will probably definitely at some point hook up a keyboard and mouse to play through certain parts of it.
Yeah, we get those bosses probably. I'm sure there'll be those hard bosses. Going back to Call of Duty for a second. Or go ahead if you're done.
I just want to mention another comment from Paul's Gaming Live. I have no words for Tears of the Kingdom other than it's a classic. And Paul, I'm guessing that's because you've had a chance to dig your teeth into it. And yeah, I've heard good things about it too. Because Breath of the Wild was probably the only Zelda game that I really have ever really stuck with. So that's just not that style of third person action adventure RPG. In its in years past, in iterations past that have been still kind of a JRPG flavor, have not just been my cup of tea. Breath of the Wild definitely invoked aspects of Western RPG design into it. But like I said, I'll eventually get to Tears of the Kingdom. I'm just not falling off the log to get to it just yet, given what I've seen. I'm sorry, Tal, go ahead.
No, that's right. Going back to Call of Duty for a second. I haven't played the remakes, or I shouldn't say remakes, but the reboots of Modern Warfare, so 1 or 2. But when you're playing in there, do they still have in the multiplayer? Do they still have? Obviously, they have kill streaks, I'm assuming. Do they still have the other? I forgot what the other one was. It's more of like an assist kind of a streak that you can get.
Yeah, so everything is a streak now. What they did, and the thing that rankled a lot of legacy players is, so kill streaks are a streak. Although they do have a switch now that you can flip it to either kill streaks or score streaks. Score streaks might be in some ways easier because you get score for lots of different things, not just kills. And so a common tactic people will use is they'll put it on score streaks when you're playing something like domination or hardcore or control, because you're racking up points for being on the defense point, etc. And then the thing that rubbed people the wrong way this time is perks. So it used to be that you would get perks and you would just have them all the time. Now I think you have the first 2 perks are like your normal perks, and you have those. So for instance, like Overkill and Tracker. So you arm, so you have 4 sets of perks in your perk package. Overkill you have all the time. It's a passive capability that allows you to arm, 2 weapons from the primary weapons group. And then Tracker, right, for instance, you have Tracker all the time, so you can see people's footprints, right, if you're passing by, where they were, right, within some number of seconds. But then your other 2 streaks, I can't remember what causes them to go active or turn on. Basically, it's an intermix of score and a timer. So I think it's on a timer, and then maybe you can advance the timer by like doing certain things successfully in the game. But for instance, Cold-Blooded, right, which used to be turned on all the time, now only turns on at a certain point in the match. There are compensating factors. So for instance, like I've noticed, like if I get thrown into a match that's already in progress, a lot of times those perks will turn on as soon as I drop in the match, because it's like, oh, well, had you been here for 5 minutes, right, then your perk would be armed. So there's that. And I think, I want to say Loadout. I forget what it's called, but there's a, no, that's a field upgrade. So I can't remember right off the top of my head, but like Cold-Blooded is now is on that, you got to wait for it to pop in a match. And so, like I said, the problem that a lot of people had is a lot of those perks are perks that were just on all the time in the match. Then the other thing is, so now you have 3 things that are on some type of cooldown, warm up, timer, success rate thing. Like score streaks were always that half of your perks are on that now. And now field upgrades, which I think have always been on some type of a timer, but it's just, like I said, it's another point of angst because now there's just so many things on timers. But field upgrades are another thing that you get, like decoy. What's another one? But like decoy and battle rage, right, are things that your field upgrade takes a while to pop, and then you hit. I have it on my keyboard. It's X. Then you hit X. Then you could choose one of the two right field upgrades to use, and then once you've used them, then it goes back to a timer. Now you can stack these things, and so there is a perk that accelerates how fast your field upgrades come up. And also, as soon as that perk pops, then you immediately get a field upgrade. So there's all sorts of ways to kind of maximize right your economy. But that's and that's a good way to think about it. But the problem is that there is an economy of the battlefield now when those things arm and your management of that now in combination with score streaks, right? And sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's great to get a UAV, score streak that, shows you where people are, and then, combine that right with a perk or a field upgrade, right, to maximum advantage. So yeah, but that's where they live now.
Okay. It almost sounds like they're almost trying to take the perks and it's almost like an Apex, like they're doing the Apex abilities, but they're trying to do it like with the perks though. Like, here it's going to pop after a few seconds or, there's a cooldown and stuff like that. So kind of interesting.
Yeah, and one more comment from Paul's Live. Paul says, this is back to Tears of the Kingdom. He is 20 hours deep. The awe and amazement, just Nintendo magic.
Nice. Yeah, I've seen it's gotten just tens across the board, like on pretty much every site. So, yeah, that's another one. Eventually I'll get to that. I never beat the first one, and I'm the kind of person where I got to beat the previous one before I jump into the next one. Even though I believe this one's a prequel, if I remember correctly, according to the story, in the storyline. So.
Yeah, I can't remember. I thought it happened after, but like
was it? Oh, okay. Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, and that's one of the reasons. Like, so the way I play, right, and the reason, one of the reasons I'm not jumping on the Tears of the Kingdom wagon right away is because the way I play games, I tend to, pick story-driven games up, put them down, and come back to them. And like I just would routinely do that with Breath of the Wild and would lose the beat on what am I doing now? Like, what is the whole point of this?
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me that I'm not clear whether or not Tears of the Kingdom is a prequel or a sequel, in terms of the chronological timeline, but that's what it is. So Paul's Gaming Live mentions he did not like Breath of the Wild, and yeah, and that's what I've heard too, is that Tears of the Kingdom, they are two distinct games, right? Tears of the Kingdom builds on in a lot of ways the mechanics of Breath of the Wild, but it is not a carbon copy, and it's probably less of a direct mechanical sequel than something like God of War and God of War Ragnarok, right? Where Ragnarok leans very heavily on like the mechanics of the 2018 game.
Interesting. Yeah, I did the same thing where I stopped playing Breath of the Wild for a while and came back to it. I was like, oh man, I have no clue what I'm doing. And then I contemplated, should I restart the game? I was like, no, I was already like at least halfway through the game. I was like, I can't restart it. So I got it just one day, over a few days, just kind of get acclimated back into the, not only controls, but just, what was going on at the time. So it's unfortunately, that's what happens sometimes. All right. So that is it for tonight. We've gone through our games, our news. I'm going to try one game, actually, I was talking about Horizon Zero Dawn, getting back to, but I want to try to get back to Hogwarts Legacy because I haven't played that for a while. And I was like big into that when it first came out. I just kind of, other stuff was happening, and so I couldn't play, so I started going back to my go-tos just because it was quick hits. But I do want to get back to that and try to finish that off. I think I was a good ways into that game, so another one where I can just get into it. Anything coming up for you that you're going to be playing this coming week? Specific?
We'll see how time avails. I do want to, I have WRC Generations on PC, but I just haven't had a chance to play it yet. I may also get it for PlayStation 5 because I did find out that my Thrustmaster T300 RS Gran Turismo Edition racing wheel and pedals, which I bought to work with PC, and therefore to play Microsoft games like Forza, turns out that wheel and pedals does work with the PlayStation 5, even if you don't have the upgraded model that has, my model has a PS4, PS3 switch, but apparently it also works with the PlayStation 5 if you just flip it to PS4 mode. So I am likely to try that out. I may. It's on my list to also. So the wheel and pedals I have. This was a lifelong goal of mine. I finally got the wheel and pedals that has from Thrustmaster that has the servo motor base, so you can swap wheels in like different wheels out with it. And I've for a long time I've been wanting to get a Formula One wheel for it as well as a rally racing wheel since I play F1 almost every year, and I play a good number of rally games. But those those wheels are as expensive as a lot of other wheel and pedal sets from like Logitech. So we'll see if that happens. But I have on my list in the short queue to play some WRC Generations. I may also get around to trying out Dead Island 2. I think were my main two things that I was looking at getting into here shortly. But we'll see. I'm in the middle of a 3-game series against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so MLB The Show may continue to occupy my time. That's what I'm going to play tonight after we get off the podcast, and it may suck me in.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tampa Bay
Rays. Sorry.
Rays. Okay.
Yeah.
I got confused there for a second. I was like, oh, you played Madden too? You didn't mention that. I was like, okay. Yeah. Actually, the 2K Drive actually comes out this week too. I was kind of eyeing that because it looked pretty interesting. It's that Lego kind of driving game. I mentioned, I think, a few weeks ago that they just, I kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't even know about it until they had mentioned it a few weeks ago. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't realize it was coming out so soon. So maybe that's something that was I might jump into. There was another game too, Ravenlock, that came out a couple weeks ago, and I believe it's on Game Pass that I wanted to try. I was going to try to get into it before this week's show, but I didn't get a chance. So might also jump into that one, but we'll see. All right. So that is it for tonight. Paul's Gaming Live, thanks for stopping by and the comments for the show. Game Logic, thank you for joining me once again. Hopefully, DB will be back next week. But please join us next week for episode 291, where Mr. Game Logic will be the primary host, with hopefully myself and DB on the mic also. Any last words before we head off?
No, not at all. Good show.
Cool. Yep. Excellent show. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Or if you're in the future, if you've already watched, take care of yourselves out there, and please play those games. We will see you next time.